Hello and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode number 68 in an ongoing series of live broadcasts designed for folks who've got a growth mindset or those who'd like to create, hone, or deepen one. All right, so if you'll take just a moment, click share just under this video and invite your community, your audience, to join the conversation. All right, so here's our playground today. And again, for those of you listening live rather than to one of the recorded podcasts, this is Memorial Day. Today when we honor those who served our country and paid the ultimate price. So sort of fitting that this is our quote for the day. And thanks to Mark Bali and his comment this morning, I made that connection. All right, security is not the meaning of my life. Great opportunities are worth the risk. This is Shirley Hufstedler, who was the Secretary of Education for a couple of years in the late 70s, early 80s. Security is not the meaning of my life. Great opportunities are worth the risk. You know, I as a psych major, and my original degree was in that area of work, and I went back to Maslow immediately with this. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the idea that once our need for security, the physical security and safety, that second tier, food, clothing and shelter, safety and security. So when our need for security is met, only at that point can we even contemplate having our psychological needs met, love, belongingness, right? But security is a funny thing, right? Security is somewhat situational. Yeah. I'm going to tie it to something much more ethereal, much less of the human physical security. Because I go back to the idea that financial security is really an odd way of thinking to put those two words together, financial and security. In the 1930s, it didn't matter how many zeros you had in the bank, how large your bank account was. After October 29th, you woke up the next morning and you had zero in the bank. And to take it to even a stronger example, Jews in Europe in the late 30s, early 40s, it didn't matter how many zeros you had in the bank. The next morning, you woke up that is, if you woke up, you had zero. So it doesn't matter how much money you amass. The idea is you can't have enough of what you don't really need. And one doesn't need money for security. Money is just one of the markers that we have for being secure. As an entrepreneur, I look at financial security as the belief, the knowing, that internal trust that, wow, God forbid if I all of a sudden lost it all and I had nothing. Do I know how to make it back? Do I know how to recoup? Do I know how to recover? What is my resilience? That resilience to me is the measure of security. That if everything goes sideways, do I know how to survive? Do I know how to make it back? Do I know how to restructure the scaffolding that makes me feel secure? So when I look at security that way, it's different. It's no longer just about being secure. It's knowing that I can recreate the scaffolding to be secure, because things change constantly. Conditions around us change. Conversation that I'm hosting tomorrow afternoon is about humble leadership in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and God, I've lost it. The idea that we are living in an uncertain, ever-changing, complex, volatile environment. So security is temporal at best and personal and situational at best, at most. So when I saw Shirley Hufstedler's quote, the idea that security is not the meaning of life, great opportunities are worth the risk. Hell yes. Anything that we choose to do that upsets the current scaffolding, the current sense of security and stability that we have, is inherently risky. Leaving what we know, my son leaves for college in 89 days and is walking into a new world, has to recreate a sense of structure and stability and security. And granted, college is a weird example because college, my God, they create security all around, emotional, physical, psychological, sometimes overly. The point is, he's leaving what's familiar and going to what's unfamiliar, which means creating a new sense of security and building new scaffolding around him to feel secure, right? Getting married changes everything that was before and creates a new opportunity to create new scaffolding for security, because although there's an alliance with another, it's still a different structure than you had before. Having children, or 3 children, as we did, changes what we thought of as safety and stability and security. Not only is everything different for us, and are we required to come up with new scaffolding and new structure to feel secure, we're providing not just physical security and psychological and emotional security for our children. We're hoping to build in them the scaffolding that will allow them to have it. So our sense of security and our definition of security shifts instantly, right? So all this is about what is security and what is worth testing and risking, whatever that current made up sense of security is, right? So what's worth it for you? I mean, Mark's post this morning, the opportunity to lead, serve, impact, and leave a legacy, absolutely cornerstones of an intentional, on purpose, and no regrets life. Those that choose to serve in the armed forces in this country or any country, those who choose to serve are leaning into, they are so clear what the risk is. And yet the opportunity to serve, to lead, is worth the risk. And the security they provide us at a national level. Yes, thank you for your service. And for those who have paid the ultimate price, my God, we support the families of those fallen soldiers. It is a risk. It is an opportunity that is worth the risk for those that serve. So what is worth the risk for you? What are the risks that you're willing to take to toss security on its head and to create inherently, by shifting to a risk, to a new opportunity? We turn security on its head. Our behaviors upend our security. The opportunity of expansion, of expression, of branching out, of growth. Those opportunities are worth the risk of failure, of falling short, of looking the fool, of even being forgotten. To me, the opportunity to lead, to serve, to be of service, the opportunity to have a footprint of impact bigger than it is in any given moment, than it is right now, is worth the risk. I had recent conversations about this. I still have a gut-wrenching fear, to take this from the sublime to the ridiculous. I have a gut-wrenching fear of being seen as frivolous, or for the work that I'm doing to be seen as unimportant. And every time I flip on the camera for a broadcast, or any time that I walk out on a stage, I risk that. I risk being seen as less than I want to be seen as. I risk failing. I risk, which I've done before, flipping out so much that I walk off the stage before I'm done. And I risk failure Anytime I put my opinions, my thoughts, my heart out in public, but I also have the opportunity to have an impact, to be of service. There's a guarantee that I will not have an impact if I do not risk. And for every one of us, if we do not risk, we have 100% chance of not having the impact, of staying in our current container. This is one of those places where ADD actually serves really well. Because here's what's interesting. With risk, there's usually, oh my God, that adrenaline surge. There's a fine line between excitement and fear. Thankfully, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. And as part of ADD, ADHD is often a stimulation seeking. And yes, the stimulation that comes from that physical surge of adrenaline, even the cortisol, that fear reaction that comes with the risk, that's stimulating. There's a very high comorbidity or coincidence of folk who have risky hobbies or habits like car racing, jumping out of airplanes. When there's high risk, high stimulation, we often see folks with ADHD lean towards very risky, very high stimulation, very high energy, adrenaline fueled sports. One of my favorite ADD coaches, Alan Brown, races motorcycles. Yes. So the risk, there's a reward, that buzz, right? That, the vibration, the energy, the adrenaline, the risk is in some ways its own reward. Emily Gale is also hosting a session coming up this week, and high exposure, high attendance. So on one hand, there's risk. On the other hand, this is something that Emily and I and those other hosts that are working with WBEX know inside out. And yet there's still the buzz. There's still that adrenaline. There's still that vibration. There's a reason that we're in the green room before a broadcast for half an hour so that we can breathe and connect with the panelists. And this is about how do we use risk, and how can I harness the stimulation of the adrenaline surge to be in service of moving forward. And I think that's the piece I would love for folk to be left with this week is security is situational. You perceive security. You perceive your own security. Goodness knows, as we walk through the world in fear, our body is reacting the same way to the perceived fear of being slighted or being wronged, the same way our bodies reacted millions of years ago to the threat of, for example, the saber-toothed tiger, despite the fact that we never lived on the planet at the same time. But the point is, we live in that and operate in that triggered state. Well, how can we use that triggered state? How can we use the adrenaline and the energy that comes with risk to move us forward into the opportunity with more likelihood of success? How do we use that energy in service of? Security is not the meaning of my life. When I over-calibrate towards seeking security, I miss opportunities. Security is not the meaning of my life. Great opportunities are worth the risk. Absolutely. Great opportunities are worth the risk. So the question for this week is, what opportunities are worth the risk for you? What are you willing to risk security for the opportunity to achieve? What opportunities are worth the risk for you? So join me at facebook.com/Mindset Mondays. Would love to have you join the conversation and hear more about the risks that you're willing to take and the opportunities that make that risk worthwhile. And so between now and next week, what mindset will you choose?